Hi, this video is going to go over the interview process for your psychosocial interview. So by the time you watch this, you may or may not have identified your interviewee. If you have not, please make sure you go back to the week 3 module and choose or let me know who you are going to interview. Now there is an extended grace period on this, so if you haven't found someone yet, you still do have a little bit of time. So I am right now in week 4 when I'm making this video. So this assignment is due technically tomorrow, which is October 9th. Please check the dates in your course to ensure that you know the exact due date and how long the grace period is. You can find that out by opening the assignment and looking at the available until date. All right, so you are finding this video down here, and no, you don't see all my junk here, in the course project support area. You do have access immediately after this page to the conducting the interview page, which we're going to look at. So you may want to open that page also while you watch this video. So this is where the video lives. You do also have a link to the directions or the complete directions for the entire paper. So we're going to start that to just sort of look at where we are. So you may or may not have started this yet. It is wise to start it just a little bit at a time so that you can add things to it. At least opening the template, making a copy, adding some of the title page information, maybe even the introduction if you know your interviewee already. But what we're going to talk about this video is the interview. Now the interview portion is worth 30 points and you must conduct it by video or audio recording. It is easiest if you do it on Zoom, but you can also use Canvas Studio, you can use YouTube. Now if you use Zoom, you can generate the captions while you're conducting the Zoom, so you do have to choose that, and it will produce a transcript for you because you will need to embed or copy and paste the transcript into your paper. All right, so let's go over to the directions for the interview. There is a link from this page, but if you're here, you can click this link. Hit Command and click it. If you're on a Mac, that will open it in another tab. All right, so by now you've probably heard me say it many, many times that whoever you interview must be a different racial ethnic group than yourself. That means if you're Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, Chicano, Chicana, however you identify in that category, you cannot interview someone who also is Latino, Latinx, Chicano, Chicana, Latine, even if they're from another country. This is one of the things that I want you to ponder as we go through this course is how can you group all these people with all these different experiences into one group? Well, that is what the government and research and how we designate populations and demographics and how money is distributed for grants and services. It is all decided upon the major racial ethnic groups. So that is what we're using. If you are still unsure, please message me in Pronto to make sure, or just submit the person with the written statement and I will comment there for you until we get you someone. If you are multiracial, remember that you cannot pick someone that identifies with either of your multiracial ethnic groups. So that may make it a little harder for you. If you need help, please let me know. You can choose any person. It does not have to be someone in this class. It does not have to be a stranger. It could be your friend. It could be your coworker. It could be one of your teachers, your counselor, someone at your church, synagogue, temple, mosque, someone, I don't know, what else? What other social groups might you have? Like if you're in a club, if you're a gamer, like someone that you game with. I don't know if that's the term you use. I guess I should have asked my son, but it can be any person. If you're having trouble, use one of the discussion boards or Pronto to find someone in the class that you can match up with. All right. So the method you want to use, Zoom is the easiest, I think, and it is free. You can use Canvas Studio, and that may be helpful if you need to. You can also develop the captions in there. I don't know about the translation. You can develop captions in multiple languages, but you need it to come over into English. So we're going to talk about that if you're interviewing someone that does not use English as their primary language. So again, Zoom is good. Now Pronto actually has a feature, translation feature in it, but you would have to be interviewing someone that attends Contra Costa College in order to conduct the interview on Pronto. Again, reach out to me if that is your situation. Okay, so what do you do in this interview? There is a list of questions that you can ask. Now, you do not have to ask all of these questions. You can add questions if you want. This is not set in stone, but what this is sort of aligned to the topics that we're looking at in our textbook and throughout the course. So you can elaborate in any of these areas. You can add to these areas. You can, add new areas if you'd like. But remember that in your paper, where's the paper? You have 4 sections of analysis. You're going to have 4 different paragraphs. You are going to have 2 paragraphs that are required topics, social identity and intersectionality. So this is a lot about how does the person identify. So you want to make sure, if anything, you talk about racial ethnic socialization. That is going to be key to help you develop these 2 sections. Then, for the other 2 paragraphs of the 4, you choose from this list. So your person may not, have any background or identify with LGBTQIA+, but they might, right? So you have to kind of develop the questions if you feel your interviewee has things to say in this area. So that's why I say that the questions are fluid. They can change. This is sort of your base. You do not have to ask any of them. Students always ask me about this one. Well, what happens if the person I interviewed didn't immigrate here, didn't migrate here, or their immigration or migration was a forced migration? Like, do you have to really ask this? No, of course not. You don't have to ask this. If it doesn't apply to the person, then, there's no point in asking it. However, in some cases, people haven't really thought about this past, their parents or grandparents. Unless your interviewee is Native American, First Nation, then their people came here somehow, either by choice or by force. And maybe they want to talk about that. Maybe they want to talk about how their family came to the Bay Area from, I don't know, Georgia, Ohio, somewhere else, right? So don't close it off. Don't assume the person has nothing to say in this area, but maybe ask about it. And if they, don't start talking about it, then move on. You can always come back, right? The idea is for a conversation, and the questions are a guide to your conversation. If the person just spends 20 minutes talking about, I don't know, health access, let them talk for 20 minutes. If the person wants to curse, let them curse. It is fine, right? This is their story, their experience. Let them explain it in the way they feel the most comfortable. I am not concerned about language, but when you do share it with the class, you may want to put a trigger warning on it, just so that others are aware that it does have, whatever discussion of language issues. Also, if it has to do with any type of violence, if there's any conversation about violence, make sure you add that. We'll talk more about that later. But this is right now just about the interview. It's a conversation. Let the person talk. Now, this one at the end I added. This is something new. But if you're struggling with your interview to get the person, if they're not comfortable, then maybe start with this or add it in somewhere if you're, maybe the conversation is dying down. I call it Voices from the People. It's probably not the best name. I know it kind of sounds corny. But ask the person if there's a story, a lesson, or an experience that they feel is unique to their racial ethnic group. Like some story that they always heard growing up, or some story that every family has a story about something, right? So for example, almost every Armenian has a story about the Armenian genocide. Like every family has a story. Many Latino families may have a story about citizenship or immigration or coming to the United States, as would maybe many other groups, right? These are just examples. But ask the person if there's any story unique to their experience that they always heard their parents or grandparents talk about, even if it's a family-based story. This is where the best parts of these interviews come out, is when you hear a person's story. Okay, so I know you'll probably have questions. Please make sure you post any questions you have to the discussion board, and I will answer them by next Wednesday. On the last discussion board, there was only one question, so I only answered it in written form. If there's multiple questions, then I'll make another video, but otherwise I'll just type the answers. You do have other tabs here about how to upload your video to Canvas Studio, how to create subtitles if you need to, and this is especially if you are using something other than Zoom, and translation suggestions. So Google Translate is probably the only site I've found that is free. You can use it to get a rough translation of your video, and as long as you have that sort of rough written translation, I'm fine. I can match it up. Like, I'm not going to understand it. I'm not going to understand the exact translation perfectly, like where the words are supposed to go. But if I can read the English version as I'm watching the video that's using another language, I can figure it out. But in order for me to grade your project, I do have to have some form of English translation. Unfortunately, it's the only language I currently speak fluently. So work with me or talk to me about this if you need help or ideas or steps on how to do translation. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can do it in Zoom, download it, the transcript in the language used, then upload that into Google Translate, and then come out with an English translation. But I can help you through the steps. All right, so any questions, please post them. And again, thank you so much.